Brendan and Samantha, say hi to them if you would, please. Brendan and I go way back, and he was a kid at camp and a leader at camp and an intern at camp, and grew up in the church here, and now you're been super involved in doing mission work. Mission work here locally in St. Louis. But I want to take you back to Africa, which is where the Lord began to really radically rearrange your life. Talk just a little bit about that, because that kind of leads into what you're doing.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, it's on. So back in 2010, I went with Jeffrey Murray to wasn't really following Jesus leading up to that. And being able to be in a place where you saw people radically following Jesus and turning to follow Jesus from Muslim, from other backgrounds, political religious backgrounds, and seeing them follow Jesus with no physical gain, but giving up everything really kind of wrecked me. And caused me to realize, oh man, like this Jesus thing is real. Like these people, their only reason for following Jesus is the fact that he is real and he's radically changing their lives. And so that caused me to reassess my life and be like, oh, I want this. I want this joy, this spiritual gain of following Jesus. And so that kind of changed my perspective. And then in kind of a place of missions, God caused me to follow him and caused me to realize how important missions was as well.
Tell us, Samantha, how did you meet Brendan? Last week we had Chad and Lydia up here, and we got to hear their whole story. It wasn't planned that way, nor is this, but I was telling these guys, I don't know Samantha really at all. I think we met one time. Tell us a little bit, how'd you guys weave into one another? Because Samantha's also, I should say, tell us, before we get to that, exactly what do you do?
So Samantha and I are in staff with InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, and so the hope of InterVarsity is to impact college students. I work specifically with international students, kind of overseeing that work in St. Louis. And then Samantha is on campus at St. Louis University with faculty and undergrad and grad students. So pretty much everyone at SLU she's in charge of, fully in charge of.
Spectacular. So how did you guys meet? Give us that part. I like the romance stories.
So it was through a mutual friend. So I met her through InterVarsity, a training we had, and her and I were going to reunite in San Francisco because she lives in Nebraska, and I lived in Reno, Nevada at the time. And so him and her were also at work conferences on the West Coast at the time, and he had like a 3-day break. And so he asked her if he could join our trip, and she asked me, and I was like, oh yeah, that's fine, I don't mind. And then I was like, I wasn't sure if they had anything. I was like, oh, is he just a friend? She's like, he really is just a friend, but he's cute and single. And so, and so I was like, okay. So we met in San Francisco, and she played matchmaker. So.
Perfect. Now tell us about you. Why are you doing missions? Meaning, what's your background? How did you end up doing what you're doing?
Yeah, so I became a Christian in high school when I was 15. And I remember going to a youth group once, and because my mom's friend invited her, and I was really captivated. So then I went to the University of Nevada, Reno, and I was a student. Someone told me to join InterVarsity, and I loved it. I think it just provided so many ways for me to reach out to my friends, to experience the kingdom of God in so many different levels. And when I was graduating, I really felt the invitation from God to step into this staff role to work with InterVarsity. And I remember I was like, I don't know. How do I tell my parents that I want to be a missionary? Like, what are they going to say? But after prayer and community and things like that support, I decided to do an internship, and I've been with InterVarsity for 4 years now.
And how long have you been in the Lou here?
I moved here in June, so.
Oh, just recently,
yeah.
When you got married? Ish.
Yeah. We got married, in October, so
right.
I moved,
Wow. I didn't know that it was like that. So tell us, Brendan, you've been at WashU and SLU for quite a while now, a number of years. Let's talk about how that got started, got rolling, and then how it's evolved and so forth. Your newsletters are great.
Yeah, thank you. So WashU has an international student group been going for, 15 years now. And so I took over 6 years ago and kind of started coming along with it. And so that went from a group that was very focused on like a Friday night kind of large group event, and it's now moved into a lot of small groups where students are actively reaching out to their communities. So we've got PhD candidates in the social work program at WashU that are starting Bible studies for their other PhD friends. And these students are going back home to their home countries, and so we're trying to like train them in order to reach out to their friends now and be ready to reach out to colleagues back home. And so that's kind of gone from a one kind of like almost like a Sunday service, and if Sunday service is the only thing Southgate did, it'd be like, oh, this is fine, you know? But what really is the impactful thing is when everyone else goes out and reaches out to their community. And so we've kind of evolved the WashU group into that. And then the SLU group started 5 years ago when we had a Brazilian student keep coming to WashU's group over and over again. He's like, let's just start something at SLU. And so that's evolved into about 35 international students actively being involved.
Beautiful.
And we've had many go home and start, like recently a Japanese student went back home to Japan and he's starting a Bible study in his workplace. And so Japan is like a very Christian country. It's like less than 1%. And so he's actively wanting to reach out to friends, and he came in not wanting to talk about Jesus at all. He had just decided to follow Jesus right before he came to SLU. And now he's being a missionary back in Japan. So
it's awesome. You know, Kevin was mentioning the things that we're going to be doing at Oasis and so forth later in the holiday season. Talk a little bit about the need of these people, Samantha, that it's just a radically different culture, and they need to just encounter people in general, but also people of faith.
Yeah, I think with college students, there's so much opportunity. I think that's why I get so excited about reaching out to college students, is thinking of this is a time in their life where what they're going to decide what they believe. They're trying to explore what they believe about life now that they're away from friends and family. They're trying to figure out who are they, is there a God? And on top of that, they're also incredibly open to have spiritual conversations. I can just go on campus, and I kid you not, I can go up to a random student and ask them, hey, talk to them, and then ask them, what's your spiritual background or beliefs? And it's not super weird. They're not like, how dare you ask me that? They're actually going to really engage. And so there's so much opportunity to just talk with students and really care for them in a place where they're trying to figure out these big decisions in life. So I really get excited about that. And also knowing that these students are going to graduate and then go into society and have these like really influential positions. And it just gets me excited thinking of what if these students love Jesus and know how loved by Jesus they are, and they get to go into the workforce and really make a difference, treat their employees very differently or coworkers differently. So I think that's really exciting.
Brendan, how many, like, what is there a percentage, do you even know, like of these young ones that are then going back to their own countries?
Yeah. So in St. Louis, there's like 100,000 university students in St. Louis, and of that, it's about like 15,000 international students.
Wow.
And the vast majority are going to be going back home. So I don't know the exact percentage, but at least 10,000
right.
would be going back home every single year. And so, yeah, it's just a massive opportunity as we think about, we have to send out missionaries to other countries, which is super important, but they have to learn language, learn culture, meet people, and then they're international students here who know the language, who know the culture, who know people already, and so we're just sending them into already established networks.
So profound, isn't it? Is there something else you'd like to tell us, and then I want to ask you how we can partner with you better?
Yeah, so I think we just get like a really wide range of students that come. So I also help oversee Muslim ministry across the country, and so a couple fun stories. We saw a woman a year and a half ago just have a radical vision of Jesus in a time of prayer ministry. And she's now gone back to her home country and is making connections and talking with her family there. And so this is like, if you guys have any idea of what kind of like Muslim background networks are, it's like very hostile to hearing about Jesus as more than Lord and Savior. So very open to talking about Jesus, but anything more, it's very difficult. And so when you're sending someone who's had a drastic encounter with Jesus back to those networks, it's just super influential. And when we think about non-Western culture, it's very communal. And so as one person from a community comes to faith, it's really likely that more people from that community will come to faith when they're trained well. And so also like the fourth highest sending country to the U.S. is Saudi Arabia, which is like the birthplace of Islam. And in St. Louis, there's thousands of Saudi students here it's just like, what if we reached out to them and they went back home to their home country?
Beautiful. How can we partner with you?
Well, I think one of the biggest things, obviously, is prayer. Right now, since I'm working with the undergraduate population and graduate and faculty at SLU, we're kind of in a rebuilding phase. Kind of the chapter just hit some peaks and then dipped, and so I came in to an undergraduate chapter of about 5 students. And now we have a faculty ministry that we're starting, and we're reaching out to different groups on campus, which is exciting. But just prayer for that. I think sometimes my students, they've been inviting so many people, and there's not a huge response yet, so they get discouraged. So just prayer for my leaders that they can feel, just hear God's encouragement in that, and that what they're doing is good work, even if they're not seeing the fruit of it right now. So one of those things is prayer for sure. Do you want to share?
Another thing is we love people like come out and help in various things. There's like one-time volunteering opportunities to like regular volunteering opportunities. And so we love trying to fit volunteers with like what their skill set is. Because if you go in and you're like, oh, I'm not very good at cooking, and we ask you to like bring food for a meal and you bring, something that isn't that good, it's like, maybe that's not the best fit. But we'd love to find good fits where your like strengths are and what you really love. And so we love getting volunteers to come along as well. And we love just like meeting people that want to know more about the ministry. So we're going to be in the back talking more. And then as missionaries, we're financially funded by ministry partners, so people in the community. So we're currently in the midst of a big fundraising push as a married couple. And so we would love to be able to gain more financial support as well.
Perfect.